At my daughter's wedding, she whispered loud enough to hear, "When that old lady ends up in a nursing home, the penthouse in Miami is ours." I simply stood up and walked away. On Monday, she found out I had donated everything to my caregiver. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. I never thought I would hear those words from my own daughter's mouth, especially on her wedding day. When that old lady goes into a nursing home, the Miami penthouse is ours. Isabella's whisper was loud enough for me to hear as I walked past. The bride and groom's table, carrying my half-empty champagne glass. I froze mid-step, my heart constricting in my chest as if someone had reached in and squeezed it with an ice-cold hand. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. But then David, my new son-in-law, chuckled and replied, "Just a matter of time, babe. Your mom's getting more forgetful every day." They hadn't noticed me standing there, just a few feet away. I was just the mother of the bride, a 62-year-old widow who had apparently overstayed her welcome in her daughter's life. I was that old lady now, a burden to be managed, an asset to be acquired. I looked at Isabella, radiant in her designer wedding gown, that cost more than my first car, laughing with her new husband about putting me away. This beautiful, accomplished woman I had raised alone after her father died when she was only 7, the child for whom I had sacrificed everything. The wedding reception continued around me, crystal glasses clinking, string quartet playing, guests dancing under twinkling lights at the country club Isabella had insisted on. A venue that had stretched my savings to the breaking point, though I'd never told her that. I never wanted her to worry about money the way I had. With a calm I didn't feel, I set my champagne glass down on a nearby table. My hands were trembling, but no one seemed to notice. I simply turned and walked away from the head table. Away from the daughter who saw me as nothing more than a pathway to property. No dramatic scene. No confrontation. I simply retrieved my purse from the coat check, nodded to the young attendant, and walked out into the warm Miami evening. The valet looked surprised when I asked for my car. "Leaving so soon, Mrs. Reynolds?" he asked, concern in his young eyes. At least someone noticed. "Yes," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'm not feeling well." As I drove away from the glittering reception, memories washed over me like a relentless tide. How many nights had I worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for Isabella's private school tuition? How many of my own dreams had I set aside to make sure she could pursue hers? After Robert died, leaving me with a mountain of debt and a 7-year-old daughter, I had remade myself. From stay-at-home mom to working nurse to eventually nursing director, I had climbed the ladder with single-minded determination. Not for myself, but for Isabella. When she wanted ballet lessons, I found the money. When she needed braces, I worked weekends. When she got accepted to an Ivy League college, I remortgaged our modest home to help with tuition. I never complained, never faltered. This was what mothers did, wasn't it? My penthouse in Miami, the one Isabella and David were so eager to get their hands on, was the only luxury I had ever allowed myself. After decades of hard work, after sending Isabella through college and helping with the down payment on her first condo, I had finally bought something just for me. A place with a view of the ocean where I could retire in peace. Isabella had been furious when I purchased it 3 years ago. "Mom, that's crazy," she had said over the phone, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Why do you need such an expensive place? You should be thinking about your future, about assisted living options." I was only 59 then, healthy, active, sharp as I'd ever been. But in Isabella's eyes, I was already 1 foot in the grave, and my money was being wasted on my comfort rather than preserved for her inheritance. As I pulled into my building's parking garage, the weight of the evening settled fully on my shoulders. The doorman greeted me with a smile that faded when he saw my face. "Everything okay, Mrs. Reynolds?" "Just tired, George," I said, forcing a smile. Big day. In the elevator up to my penthouse, I stared at my reflection in the polished doors. I didn't see an old lady ready for a nursing home. I saw a woman who had given everything to a daughter who saw her as nothing more than a checkbook and a future. Inheritance. When I entered my home, Rosa, my housekeeper and companion of the last decade, looked up in surprise from where she was reading on the sofa. "Ms. Patricia, you're home so early. Did something happen at the wedding?" I looked at Rosa, the woman who had cared for my home and often for me, who remembered my birthday when Isabella forgot, who made sure I took my blood pressure medication, and who listened to my stories about Robert even though she'd heard them all before. "Yes," I said finally, my voice breaking. Something happened. I finally saw the truth. I sank down onto the sofa beside Rosa, and for the first time since Robert's funeral, I allowed myself to cry. Not delicate tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded, and Rosa, God bless her, simply held my hand and let me weep. The morning after the wedding, I awoke with swollen eyes and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Rosa had made me chamomile tea and sat with me until nearly midnight as I poured out decades of hurt and disappointment. She didn't offer platitudes or tell me I was overreacting. She just listened. "You've done everything for Miss Isabella," she had said finally, her accent thickening with emotion. "Everything, Ms. Patricia. And some people, they never appreciate what they have until it's gone." I sat at my kitchen island, watching the sunrise paint the Miami skyline in gold and pink, and thought about Rosa's words. At what point had I become a vending machine for Isabella rather than a mother? When had her love become so conditional? The phone rang, piercing the morning quiet. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the chime of a text message. "Mom, where did you go last night? People were asking about you. Call me." No concern about whether I was okay. No acknowledgement that I had left my only daughter's wedding early. Just irritation that I had disrupted her perfect day by not playing my part. I set the phone down without replying and moved to the window, looking out at the ocean stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Robert and I had dreamed of retiring to a place like this. We'd planned and saved, talking about the cruises we would take, the sunsets we would watch together. Then cancer came, swift and merciless, and took him at 45. I had put those dreams away along with his clothes, focusing instead on raising our daughter, making sure Isabella had everything she needed and most of what she wanted. I didn't date again. I didn't have time. Between work and Isabella's activities, my days were full, and at night, I was too exhausted to consider building a new life for myself. "What would you think of her now, Robert?" I whispered to the horizon. "Our little girl who plans to ship me off to a nursing home so she can have this view." My phone rang again. Isabella again. This time I picked up. "Mom, finally. Where did you disappear to last night? David's parents were asking about you, and it was so embarrassing to have to say you just left without telling anyone. No, hello? No, are you okay? Just straight to how my actions had inconvenienced her." "I wasn't feeling well," I said, my voice neutral. "I didn't want to make a scene." "You could have told someone," she huffed. "Anyway, we're opening gifts today at our place around 3. You'll be there, right? I need you to write down who gave what for the thank you cards. Not would. You like to come, but you'll be there. Not, would you help me? But I need you to. As if my attendance and assistance were foregone conclusions. "I'm sorry, Isabella, but I can't make it today," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. "I have other plans." "What plans?" she demanded, disbelief evident in her tone. "Mom, this is important. It's traditional for the mother of the bride to help with the gift record." I'm having lunch with Rosa, I said, the idea forming as I spoke. It's her birthday tomorrow, and we made plans weeks ago. It wasn't Rosa's birthday, but the lie came easily. For once, I was putting someone else's feelings, and my own, ahead of Isabella's demands. Rosa, your housekeeper? Mom, you can take her to lunch any day. This is my wedding gift opening. I'm sorry, Isabella, I made a commitment. I felt a strange power in the refusal. I hope you and David enjoy your gifts. I ended the call before she could protest further, then turned to find Rosa standing in the doorway, a concerned expression on her face. Ms. Patricia? Is everything okay? I smiled, genuinely this time. Yes, Rosa, but I hope you're free for lunch today. Apparently we have plans. Her confusion melted into a warm smile. For you, Miss Patricia, I am always free. Over lunch at a small Cuban restaurant Rosa had long wanted to try, I found myself talking about things I hadn't spoken of in years. My dreams of becoming an artist before I met Robert. The scholarship to art school I'd turned down to marry him. The painting supplies I still kept in a closet, untouched for decades. Why did you stop? Rosa asked, dipping a piece of bread into olive oil. The painting? Life happened. I shrugged. After Robert died, there was no time. Isabella needed stability, not a mother chasing dreams. Rosa's dark eyes studied me. And now? Isabella is married. She has her own life. What about your life, Ms. Patricia? What about my life indeed? For so long I had been defined by my roles: wife, widow, mother, provider. Who was I when those roles no longer defined me? What did Patricia Reynolds want, just for herself? That evening, I sat at my desk with a legal pad, a strange excitement building in me. I began to list my assets: the penthouse, my retirement accounts, some stocks, a small life insurance policy. More than enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life and still leave Isabella a sizable inheritance. An inheritance she was already counting on. An inheritance she and David were planning their future around. I picked up the phone and called my attorney, Howard Bloom, who had been handling my affairs since Robert's death. Patricia, good to hear from you. How was the wedding? Illuminating, I replied. Howard, I need to make some changes to my will, as soon as possible. There was a pause on the line. Of course. May I ask what's prompting this? Let's just say I've had a change of perspective, I said. Can you come to my place tomorrow, around 11? I'll be there, he promised. After I hung up, I walked to the spare bedroom closet and pulled out the dusty art supplies I had mentioned. To Rosa, the brushes, the paints, the canvases, all waiting patiently for the day I would return to them. Tomorrow, I would begin rewriting my will. But tonight, I would begin rewriting my life. As I set up an easel by the window overlooking the ocean, I felt a sense of anticipation I hadn't experienced in years. The phone rang again. Isabella, no doubt, upset about my absence at the gift. Opening, but I let it go to voicemail. For the first time in decades, I had more important things to do than cater to my daughter's demands. I had a life to reclaim and decisions to make about who truly deserved to benefit from everything I had worked so hard to build. Howard arrived precisely at 11 the next morning, leather briefcase in hand and reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd been my attorney for 20 years, had helped settle Robert's estate, and had guided me through every major financial decision since then. You look different, Patricia, he said after Rosa showed him in. Something's changed. I led him to the balcony where I'd set up coffee and pastries. The ocean breeze was gentle, carrying the scent of salt and possibility. I heard something at Isabella's wedding, I said, pouring him coffee just how he liked it, black with 1 sugar. Something I wasn't meant to hear. I told him about Isabella and David's conversation, about their plans for me and my penthouse. Howard's expression darkened with each word. I'm sorry, he said when I finished. That's hard to hear from your child. It was, I agreed. But it was also clarifying. For years, I've been blind to who Isabella really is. I kept making excuses, kept hoping that if I gave her enough, she would finally feel secure, finally be grateful. Howard nodded, understanding in his eyes. He'd seen this before, families torn apart by money and expectations. So, what changes do you want to make to your will? I took a deep breath. I want to remove Isabella as my primary beneficiary. Howard's eyebrows shot up. That's a significant change, Patricia. Are you sure? I've never been more certain of anything, I said, surprising myself with my conviction. I want to leave the majority of my estate to Rosa. Rosa? Your housekeeper. My friend, I corrected gently. The person who has shown me more genuine care and concern in the last 10 years than my own daughter has. The person who deserves security in her own future. Howard removed his glasses, polishing them thoughtfully with his handkerchief. You know Isabella could contest this. She could claim undue influence, especially given Rosa's position in your household. Let her try, I said, a hardness in my voice I didn't recognize. I'm of sound mind, and this is my decision. Rosa has never asked me for anything, while Isabella has taken everything I've offered and still wants more. Howard studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right. I'll draft the new will. But Patricia, have you considered talking to Isabella first? Giving her a chance to understand how you feel? I sipped my coffee, considering his words. I've given Isabella chances her entire life, Howard. I've never asked for anything in return except love and respect. She's shown me she's capable of neither. As Howard began taking notes, my phone buzzed with a text message. Isabella again. Mom, we need to talk about your behavior. David and I are coming over tomorrow around 7. Be there. No. Can we come over? No. Would that time work for you? Just another demand, another assumption that my time and my home were at her disposal. I showed the message to Howard, who frowned. Maybe this is an opportunity, he suggested, to clear the air before making such a drastic change. Or maybe it's an opportunity for them to manipulate me further, I countered. But you're right. I'll hear them out. After Howard left with his notes and promises to have documents ready within the week, I called Rosa into the living room. She came quickly, concern in her dark eyes. Is everything okay, Miss Patricia? Did the lawyer bring bad news? I gestured for her to sit down, which she did reluctantly. Despite a decade in my home, she still maintained certain boundaries. Rosa, I need to tell you something important, I began. I'm changing my will. I'm going to leave most of my estate to you. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes widening in shock. Ms. Patricia, no, I cannot accept this. What about Miss Isabella? Isabella will be fine, I said firmly. She has a successful husband, a good career, and plenty of advantages in life, most of which I provided. But she doesn't value me, Rosa. She only values what I can give her. Rosa shook her head, distress evident on her face. This will cause problems, Miss Patricia. Big problems. Miss Isabella, she will hate me. She already resents you, I said gently. Because you have what she's never bothered to give me. Genuine care and respect. Rosa wrung her hands, tears gathering in her eyes. I never wanted to come between you and your daughter. You didn't, I assured her. Isabella did that all on her own. The next evening, precisely at 7, the doorbell rang. Rosa answered. It then quickly retreated to her quarters as Isabella and David swept in like royalty granting an audience. Isabella looked around the penthouse with the appraising eye of someone mentally calculating its value. David headed straight for my bar, pouring himself a generous scotch without asking. Mom, Isabella began, settling herself on my sofa like she owned it. We need to talk about what happened at the wedding. I sat across from her, my back straight, hands folded in my lap. Yes, we do. She looked momentarily startled by my calm directness. You embarrassed me by leaving early, she said, her tone accusatory. And then you skipped the gift opening the next day for lunch with your housekeeper. People noticed, Mom. They talked. I'm sorry if my absence caused you embarrassment, I said, not feeling sorry at all. But I wasn't feeling well. You seemed fine during the ceremony, David interjected, swirling his scotch. The problem is, Patricia, you're becoming increasingly unreliable. Isabella worries about you living alone in this big place. I almost laughed at the transparency of it. Does she now? Isabella leaned forward, adopting a concerned expression that didn't reach her eyes. Mom, we've been thinking. This place is too much for you to manage. All these stairs, the maintenance, and it's so isolated. I have an elevator, Isabella, and Rosa helps with maintenance, and I have friends in the building. But as you get older, David pressed, your needs will change. We think it would be better if you started looking at retirement communities now, while you can still choose a good one. A good one, I repeated, my voice flat. Like the one you were discussing at your wedding? When you said, and I quote, when? That old lady goes into a nursing home, the Miami penthouse is ours? The color drained from Isabella's face. David's glass froze halfway to his lips. You heard that? Isabella stammered. I did, I confirmed, meeting her gaze steadily. Every word. The silence that followed my revelation was deafening. Isabella's shocked expression quickly morphed into defensive anger. You misunderstood, she said, her voice sharp. We were joking. Were you? I asked quietly. Because it didn't sound like a joke to me. David set his glass down and leaned forward, his expression conciliatory. Patricia, you have to understand, we were caught up in the moment, the wedding, the champagne. People say things they don't mean. I looked at him, this man who had spent less than a dozen hours in my company before marrying my daughter, yet felt entitled to my property. And which part didn't you mean, David? The part about me being an old lady, or the part about taking my home once I'm warehoused somewhere? Isabella's face flushed. Mom, stop it. You're being dramatic. Am I? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ocean view they coveted so much. Tell me something, Isabella. When was the last time you called me just to check on me? Not to ask for money, not to complain about your problems, but just to see how I was doing. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to answer. That's what I thought, I said softly. You know, after your father died, I gave up everything for you. My career advancement, my personal life, even my hobbies, everything was for you. And now you're keeping score? Isabella's voice rose. Throwing your sacrifices in my face? That's what parents do, Mom. They sacrifice for their children. They don't keep a tally and demand repayment. I've never asked for repayment, I said, turning to face her. Only respect, only love. But you can't give what you don't have, can you? David stood up, moving to place a hand on Isabella's shoulder. Look, Patricia, we didn't come here to fight. We came because we care about your future. No, I corrected him. You came because you care about what I own and how you can get it. Isabella stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. I knew you were getting forgetful, but I didn't realize you were becoming paranoid too. Maybe we need to look into those retirement homes sooner rather than later. The threat was thinly veiled, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of fear. Could they actually force me out of my home? Declare me incompetent? But then I remembered Howard's reassurances about my legal protections, and the fear subsided. Not going anywhere, Isabella, I said firmly. And neither is this penthouse. We'll see about that, she snapped, grabbing her purse. Come on, David. This is pointless. As they moved toward the door, Isabella turned back, her expression cold. You know, Mom, after everything I've done for you, This is how you treat me? On my wedding week? The absurdity of her statement nearly took my breath away. What exactly have you done for me, Isabella? She looked genuinely confused by the question. I've included you in my life. I invited you to my wedding. I call you. I visit. Not many daughters would do that much for a mother who's becoming increasingly difficult. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity how Isabella viewed our relationship. Not as a daughter who owed her mother respect and gratitude, but as a benevolent benefactor who deigned to include her aging parent in her busy life. The revelation was both heartbreaking and liberating. Goodbye, Isabella, I said, turning away. I think we both need some time to reflect. After they left, Rosa emerged cautiously from her room. Miss Patricia, are you okay? I was surprised to realize that I was. Yes, Rosa, I think I am. The next morning, I called Howard to confirm my decision about the will. He promised to bring the documents by that afternoon for me to sign. Are you absolutely certain about this, Patricia? He asked, concern evident in his voice. More certain than I've been about anything in years, I assured him. I spent the morning painting, a seascape with stormy skies, but a sliver of sunlight breaking through the clouds. It wasn't particularly good after decades without practice, but the act of creation itself was healing. When the doorbell rang around 2 o'clock, I assumed it was Howard with the papers. Instead, I opened the door to find Isabella standing there alone, her expression unreadable. Can I come in? She asked, her voice subdued. I hesitated, then stepped back to let her enter. She walked to the living room and sat down, her posture rigid. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, about when I last called just to check on you. I sat across from her, waiting. I want to understand, Mom. I want to make things right between us. For a brief moment, hope flickered in my chest. Could she have had a genuine change of heart overnight? I appreciate that, Isabella, I said cautiously. She leaned forward, her expression earnest. I thought maybe we could spend more time together. Maybe I could come by more often, help you organize things here. Maybe look through some of Dad's old belongings together. My radar immediately went up. Isabella had shown no interest in Robert's belongings for 20 years. Why now? What brought this on? I asked. She shrugged too casually. I just realized I've been neglectful. You're right. I should appreciate you more while I still have you. The doorbell rang again, and this time it was Howard. His eyebrows rose slightly when he saw Isabella, but he maintained his professional demeanor. Mrs. Reynolds, I have those documents we discussed. Isabella's gaze darted between us. Documents? What documents? Before I could answer, Howard placed his briefcase on the coffee table and took out a folder. The updated will and power of attorney forms you requested. Isabella stood up so quickly she nearly knocked over the side table. You're changing your will? Is that what this is about? The mask of concern slipped, revealing the anger and greed beneath. She snatched the folder from Howard's hands before either of us could stop her, flipping it open to scan the contents. Her face paled, then flushed with fury as she read. You're leaving everything to Rosa? Your housekeeper? Are you insane? Isabella, that's enough, I said firmly, taking the folder back from her. My estate is mine to distribute as I see fit. She's manipulated you, Isabella spat, pointing toward Rosa's room. She's been working on you for years, hasn't she? Turning you against me so she could get her hands on your money. Howard stepped between us. Miss Reynolds, I can assure you that your mother is of sound mind and making her own decisions. If you continue with these accusations, I will have to ask you to leave. Isabella turned to me, tears of rage filling her eyes. You would choose her over your own daughter? After everything I've done for you? I looked at my beautiful, entitled child, the baby I had nursed, the girl I had raised, the woman I had sacrificed for, and felt nothing but sadness. No, Isabella. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in my life, I'm putting my own needs first, and I need to be surrounded by people who truly care about me, not just what I can give them. Her face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, Mom. I promise you that. A month passed without a word from Isabella. I signed the new will, with Howard bringing in a doctor to certify my mental competence, a precaution against any future challenges. Rosa continued to protest her inclusion as my primary beneficiary, but I remained firm in my decision. You deserve this, Rosa, I told her one evening as we shared dinner on the balcony. You've given me something Isabella never has. Genuine. Care without expecting anything in return. She shook her head, still uncomfortable. This will only make Miss Isabella hate me more. Isabella's feelings are not your responsibility, I said gently. Nor are they mine anymore. The truth was, despite my resolve, Isabella's absence left a void. She was still my daughter, the child I had carried and raised. I missed who I thought she was, or perhaps who I had hoped she would become. I filled my days with painting, joining an art class at the local community center. I had lunch with neighbors, volunteered at the hospital where I had once worked, and slowly built a life that was truly mine, not defined by motherhood or obligation. Then, on a sunny Tuesday morning, Isabella called. Mom, she said, her voice contrite. Can we talk? We arranged to meet at a cafe near the beach, neutral ground. When I arrived, Isabella was already there, looking uncharacteristically subdued in simple jeans and a blouse rather than her usual designer attire. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down across from her. I wasn't sure you would. You're still my daughter, I replied simply. She fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding my eyes. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what you said, about how I've treated you. I waited, saying nothing. I was wrong, she finally admitted, looking up. The things I said at the wedding, the way I've taken you for granted. I can see that now. A small, hopeful part of me wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, to tell her all was forgiven. But something held me back. Perhaps the memory of too many false starts, too many moments when I thought Isabella had changed only to be disappointed again. What brought about this realization? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She sighed. Honestly, David and I have been fighting. After what happened at your place, I started noticing things about him. How he talks about his own parents, how he's always calculating what people are worth to him. It made me think about myself, about whether I've become like that too. It was more self-awareness than Isabella had shown in years, but I still sensed something beneath the surface. I'm sorry to hear about your troubles with David, I said carefully. But I'm glad if it's led to some personal reflection. She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. I want to make things right between us, Mom. I miss you. I miss how things used to be. How things used to be, I repeated. You mean when I was financing your lifestyle and asking for nothing in return? She winced. That's not fair. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm trying here. Perhaps she was. But as I looked at her, this daughter who had cut me so deeply, I realized that reconciliation would require more than one conversation over coffee. I appreciate that, Isabella. I do. But trust takes time to rebuild once it's broken. Her expression tightened slightly. So that's it? You won't even give me a chance to make amends? I didn't say that, I replied. I'm saying that real change takes time. It requires consistent action, not just words. She withdrew her hand, a familiar petulance creeping into her expression. I thought you'd be happy that I'm trying to fix things. Isn't that what you wanted? What I want, I said carefully, is a genuine relationship with my daughter. One based on mutual respect and love, not on what either of us can get from the other. She nodded, though I wasn't sure she truly understood. We finished our coffee with small talk about her job and my art classes. carefully avoiding any mention of David, the will, or Rosa. As we prepared to leave, Isabella suggested dinner at her house the following weekend. A fresh start, she called it. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I arrived at Isabella and David's elegant townhouse that Saturday, I was surprised to find only my daughter at home. David's on a business trip, she explained, taking my coat. I thought it would be nice for just the two of us to spend some time together. The dinner she had prepared was impressive, all my favorite dishes, perfectly executed. She'd even brought out the good china, crystal glasses sparkling in the dining room's soft lighting. You've gone to a lot of trouble, I observed, touched despite my lingering wariness. Nothing's too much trouble for my mom, she said with a smile that almost reached her eyes. Throughout dinner, Isabella was attentive, asking questions about my art class, laughing at my stories about the eccentric neighbors in my building. She seemed genuinely interested, present in a way she hadn't been in years. After dessert, she brought out a photo album I hadn't seen in decades. Remember this? She asked, opening it to reveal pictures of her childhood. Isabella on her first. Bicycle, at ballet recitals, building sandcastles with Robert? Of course, I said softly, memories washing over me. Your father took most of these. You gave up so much after he died, she said, her finger tracing a photo of the three of us at the beach. I never really appreciated that until recently. The sincerity in her voice made me want to believe her. We spent an hour going through old photos, remembering happier times. It felt good, healing even. Perhaps there was hope for us after all. As the evening drew to a close, Isabella poured us each a glass of port. A toast, she said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. She took a sip, then set her glass down, her expression growing serious. Mom, there's something I need to ask you. Here it comes, I thought, bracing myself. I know I've made mistakes, she began. And I know I've been selfish, but I'm trying to change, really trying. So I was wondering, have you reconsidered your decision about the will? And there it was. The real reason for the dinner, the reminiscing, the carefully orchestrated evening of mother-daughter bonding. Isabella, I said quietly. Is that what all this has been about? Getting me to change my will back? No, she protested, too quickly. Of course not. I just thought, since we're working on our relationship, maybe you'd reconsider cutting me out completely. I haven't cut you out completely, I clarified. You still receive a portion of my estate. Just not the majority. Her expression hardened. A portion. While Rosa, a woman who works for you, gets my childhood home and most of your assets. Rosa has earned my trust, I said simply. And the penthouse was never your childhood home. Isabella, I bought it long after you moved out. She stood up abruptly, mask slipping. This is ridiculous. She's manipulated you, can't you see that? No normal person leaves their fortune to their housekeeper instead of their own child. I remained seated, suddenly very tired. Is that what you think this is about? My fortune? Isabella, I wanted to leave you a legacy of values, not just valuables. But you've only ever seen the price tag, never the worth. Don't get philosophical with me, she snapped. This is about money, my inheritance, what I'm entitled to as your daughter. I rose slowly, gathering my purse. That's exactly the problem. You think you're entitled to everything I've worked for simply because of biology. You've never understood that respect and love have to be earned. Where are you going? She demanded as I moved toward the door. Home, I said simply. Thank you for dinner, but I think we're done here. Mom, wait. Her voice shifted back to conciliatory. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. Please don't go. I turned to look at her one last time. The saddest part is, Isabella, If you had truly wanted to repair our relationship without any ulterior motive, I probably would have changed the will back on my own. But you couldn't even fake sincerity for one evening, her face crumpled. Whether in genuine remorse or thwarted manipulation, I couldn't tell anymore. "Goodbye, Isabella," I said softly, and closed the door behind me. 3 days after the disastrous dinner at Isabella's, I received a certified letter from a law firm I didn't recognize. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it, somehow knowing, before I read a word, that it was from my daughter. The letter informed me that Isabella was contesting my mental competence and seeking temporary guardianship over my affairs. The claims were outrageous, that I was suffering from early dementia, that I was being manipulated by my domestic staff, that I had become paranoid and was making irrational financial decisions. I called Howard immediately. "This is low, even, for her," he said after I read him the letter. "But not unexpected. Don't worry, Patricia. We have the doctor's evaluation, and we have plenty of evidence of your competence. This is a desperate move that will backfire on her." Still, the betrayal cut deep. Isabella was not just after my money anymore. She was trying to take away my autonomy, my dignity, all to secure an inheritance she felt entitled to. I had a restless night, tossing and turning as I replayed the last conversation with Isabella. Had there been any genuine remorse in her, any real desire to reconnect? Or had it all been manipulation, from the start? Morning brought clarity and an unexpected visitor. David stood at my door, looking uncomfortable in the harsh daylight. "Patricia," he nodded. "May I come in? I think we should talk." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him enter. He declined coffee, pacing my living room instead with an agitation I hadn't seen in him before. "Isabella doesn't know I'm here," he began, running a hand through his hair. "And she'd be furious if she found out." "Then why are you here, David?" He stopped pacing, facing me directly. "Because this has gone too far. The lawsuit, the claims about your mental state, it's wrong. I told her not to do it, but she wouldn't listen." I studied him, searching for signs of deception. "Why the sudden attack of conscience?" He sighed heavily, sinking onto my sofa. "I'm not a good person, Patricia. I've never claimed to be. I married Isabella partly because I knew she came from money, and I'm not proud of that. But this, trying to declare you incompetent, trying to force you into a care facility against your will, it crosses a line even for me." His candor was surprising. "Does Isabella know you feel this way?" "We had a huge fight about it," he admitted. "That's when I found out something else you should know." He hesitated, then continued. "The Miami penthouse isn't the only property she's expecting to inherit. She told me you own valuable land in Colorado that's been in your family for generations." I frowned in confusion. "I don't own any land in Colorado." David looked equally confused. "But Isabella said—" "Isabella is mistaken," I interrupted. "Or she's lying to you. The only significant assets I have are this penthouse, my retirement, accounts, and some modest investments. There's no family land, no hidden fortune." He absorbed this information slowly, realization dawning on his face. "She told me your family had money. Old money. That's why I—" He trailed off, embarrassed. "Why you married her," I finished for him. "I was a nurse, David. Robert was a high school teacher. We lived comfortably but modestly. Everything I have, I earned after his death, working 60-hour weeks for decades." David put his head in his hands. "She's been lying to everyone, including me." I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for him. He was not a good man, but he had been deceived too. "What will you do now?" I asked. He stood up, resolution in his face. "I'm going to call my lawyer, then Isabella's. I'm withdrawing my support for this guardianship nonsense. And then," he sighed, "then I need to figure out my marriage." After he left, I sat on my balcony, watching the waves roll in. Whatever happened between Isabella and David was no longer my concern. My only priority now was protecting myself from my daughter's desperate attempts to control me and my assets. 2 weeks later, Howard called with news. The judge dismissed Isabella's petition, he announced, and issued a pretty stern rebuke to her attorneys for bringing such a baseless case. Relief washed over me. Is it over then? The legal battle? Yes, for now at least. But Isabella still has the right to contest the will after you're gone. She just can't prevent you from making your own decisions while you're alive and clearly competent. That afternoon, I asked Rosa to join me for tea on the balcony. She sat across from me, her dark eyes watchful, concerned. Miss Patricia, I've been thinking, she began hesitantly. Maybe it would be better if I found another position. The situation with Miss Isabella, it's not good for you. Absolutely not, I said firmly. Isabella's issues are her own, Rosa. I won't let her drive away the one person who has shown me true loyalty and affection. Rosa looked down at her hands. I never wanted any of your money. I know, I said softly. That's exactly why you deserve it. A week later, Isabella called. I almost didn't answer, but something compelled me to pick up the phone. Mom, she said, her voice subdued. Can we meet? There's something I need to tell you in person. We met at the same cafe as before. Isabella looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. She ordered coffee but didn't touch it. David's filing for divorce, she said without preamble. I'm sorry, I replied, and meant it. Despite everything, I never wanted to see my daughter in pain. She gave a small, bitter laugh. Are you? I thought you'd be happy to see my life falling apart. You're my child, Isabella. Your happiness has always mattered to me, even when you've hurt me deeply. She stared out the window, blinking back tears. He says I lied to him, about you, about our family's wealth. And I did. I've been lying to everyone for so long, I barely remember the truth anymore. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. Why? I asked gently. Why the lies? She shrugged, looking suddenly young and vulnerable. I wanted to be more than I was, more than the daughter of a nurse and a teacher. I wanted the life I thought I deserved. And now? Now I don't know what I deserve, she admitted. But I know it's not your forgiveness. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of misunderstandings and betrayals between us. What will you do now? I finally asked. Start over, I guess. David's keeping the house. I'll find an apartment, focus on my career. She hesitated. I'm not contesting your will anymore. You're right. I haven't earned your legacy, and trying to force it only made me someone I don't want to be. It was a small step, but perhaps a genuine one. The door is always open for a relationship, Isabella, I said carefully. Not based on inheritance or obligation, but on mutual respect. If you ever want that, truly want it, I'm here. She nodded, tears spilling over. I don't know if I can be what you need me to be. I don't need you to be anything except honest, I told her. With me and with yourself. We parted with a tentative hug, the first real embrace we'd shared in years. I didn't know if it was a beginning or an ending, but it felt right. 6 months later, Rosa and I sat on the balcony, watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. I had just returned from an art exhibition where one of my seascapes had sold. Not for much, but enough to validate the joy painting had brought back into my life. Miss Isabella called while you were out, Rosa said. She asked if she could come for dinner next Sunday. Our relationship was tentative, rebuilding slowly. Isabella had moved into a modest apartment, taken a position with less prestige but more meaning, and started therapy. She still had moments of entitlement and selfishness, but she was trying, really trying this time, without an agenda. That would be nice, I said, smiling. As the last rays of sunlight sparkled on the water, I thought about legacy, what it truly meant. Not the money or property we leave behind, but the values we impart, the examples we set, the love we give freely without expectation of return. Isabella might never fully become the daughter I had hoped for, and I might never be the mother she had wanted. But we were finding our way towards something honest, something real. And that, perhaps, was the most valuable inheritance of all, the truth of who we are, flawed and struggling, but still capable of growth and change. The Miami penthouse would go to Rosa one day, but the true legacy I hoped to leave was this: the courage to stand up for yourself, the wisdom to recognize genuine love, and the strength to begin again, no matter how many times life knocks you down. Looking out at the endless horizon, I felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was meant to be, not defined by my role as wife or mother, but simply as Patricia Reynolds, a woman who had finally found the courage to live life on her own terms. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below, and meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.